Hi everyone, it's Darlene. Today I've got something a little different for you. Catherine Pooler and I are doing a Finish My Card collaboration. So how this works is that I'm going to create the focal point or the embellishment with a sentiment, and then I'm going to mail it to her. She lives in North Carolina, I live in Dallas, and then she's going to create a video that takes whatever I create and she finishes the card. So now you don't have to wait, because by the time you watch this video, her part's already done. So I'm going to show you creating my part, and then I'm going to link you off to her video to finish it. So anyway, this is truly a collaboration because we were actually working on the same physical card. And this is part 1. So part 2 is going to be on Wednesday. So today's Monday, so 2 days from now. And at that time, we're going to switch. So she's going to create the embellishment and the sentiment and send it to me, and then I'm going to finish the card. So be sure to come back then, because that's going to be a completely, totally different and new card. So, all right, let's get started with part 1, which is where I create the embellishment and sentiment. So I decided to use this Avery Elle set called Good Fortune. And I like to be pretty practical with my purchases, so I tend to buy stamps that I can use multiple times. I knew I'd be able to do it with this one because I use the 8-ball on a card, and I'll link you to that if you go to my blog. And now I'm going to use the fortune cookie. So let me get things set up and we'll get started.
Alright, the first thing I'm going to do is pull out my stamps. So I'm going to be using the fortune cookie, the paper strip, and a couple of different sentiments. And I'm going to be using Memento Rich Cocoa. And I'm going to stamp those down because I'm going to be using Copic markers, and this ink works great with Copics. And I thought it didn't come out dark enough, so I stamped it a few extra times. Okay, I'm using Copic markers E51, 53, and 55. And the first thing I'm going to do is color the whole thing with E51. And I tend to use this quite a bit where I do the entire thing. I cover the entire thing with the lightest color. Now this is E55, and I'm going to color the darkest areas, so kind of where the fortune cookies can be rounding out to the back. And then also I've got that crease in the middle, so I don't want to forget that there's going to be a shadow there. Alright, next I'm going to take E53, which is my medium color. I'm going to blend that right next to there. I'm going to put a little bit extra too on the sides, right up there, and then blend out that center part as well. Now back in with the lightest color just to blend that medium color into the light. I'm going to be really careful not to go over my initial coloring in the very center of the cookie, so it leaves it kind of with a whitish tint. So anyway, I did that 3 times, and now I'm going to stamp my paper strip, and this time I'm using VersaFine ink in Sepia because I just really like the way that ink works with clear stamps. It's pigment ink. So now I've got the sentiments, or the fortunes I guess, and I want them to wave just like this paper strip. So what I ended up doing was I cleaned my stamp off, and then I stuck my sentiment or my fortune right there in the center, and it's raised up on top of that stamp. So when I ink it up, I'm not going to ink up the paper strip, it's just going to ink up the actual words. And that way I know exactly where it's going to go, and I know that it's going to fit and wave exactly like my paper strip. So I cleaned that off, and then I did another one and just put it right there. I get it a little closer so you could see, and stamp it right there in the middle. Alright, and I'm just going to cut all these out. And then finally I took a brown marker. I think I used chocolate chip, Stampin' Up! Chocolate Chip. And I'm going to ink up the edges because I cut it right adjacent to that inked line of the stamp, and I just want to make sure, like if I left a little white showing, I would color it in, or if I cut off too much of the brown, that I would add just a little bit back. So anyway, let's just make sure I get a good even edge all over. Okay, so that's it for my part. I'm going to put this in an envelope and mail it to Catherine, and let's see what she does with it. So here's a link to Catherine's video so you can see how she finishes this card. So anyway, enjoy, and I will see you on Wednesday for part 2.